Thanks a lot, Dave, for sitting down to talk with me. I was just hoping you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Laura. I'm Dave, and I'm a lifelong Iowan, born and raised in Fayette County. Um, and you know, the reason why I'm running for Congress is because I've not seen a representation of myself or my neighbors or family in Congress through my entire political life. The priorities here are spoken about by politicians, but more often than not, there's taken action on. Whether it's housing affordability, the acquisition of farmland and consolidated into the hands of corporate control for over the years. Um, you know, uh, 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 Decrease in healthcare access and affordability. And that's really what's driving me to run in this is that I want to represent the everyday working class person in Congress. In the United States' 249-year history, uh, never have we had more than 2% of Congress makeup be comprised of people from the working class. It's all been elite ruling class, highly educated intellectualists. That's definitely not me. And I think that that's definitely not a lot of Americans. And so, through my last over a decade of organizing, I think that it's uniquely positioned me to be able to run to represent those not that are just forgotten, but also willfully neglected and abused by the ruling class, often stripped of our wealth and our free time by the ruling elite.
Can you talk a little bit about your activism and organizing, whether that's been for campaigns or for other causes?
Yeah, absolutely. I started organizing. The first organizing action I ever took was in 2011, protesting the erection of the Iron Dome over Israel on the taxpayer dollars. At that time, we were looking at interventionist actions in Syria, Libya, and all over this world. And I thought, why did my mom lose her house? During the Wall Street crash. But we have plenty of money to not just bail out these banks, but just jump into all of these regime change wars right after. And I just couldn't understand. And I was angry about it. And I play a lot of music. And, you hear, you think back to like Phil Oakes and things like that, who was also very anti-Vietnam War, Chris Christopherson. Um, and I started learning about organizing through this. I heard the anger in music, but I started learning about the organizing by listening to Sister Ann Feeney and Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and Joe Hill and these folks. And I started to realize I'm not just mad at the government. I am mad at the people that are occupying the people's house because the government is a vehicle, right? And it's who's driving. And the working class needs to get behind that wheel, and push those off out of the car that are driving us off a cliff. So I started getting into organizing in the labor movement, teaching people how to organize their workplaces, using that through song, following the strike lions and the Starbucks workers and the Burgerville workers out west, and really teaching people how to organize their workplace and what that means through music. Until I got a job from Bernie Sanders. In 2019, he hired me as a rural organizer in Iowa, Nevada, and South Carolina through that campaign. Um, After finishing that, I stuck into the community organizing realm, but wanted to stay hyper local. I had no aspirations for these big think tanks in Washington or nothing like that. So got with an organization called United Today, Stronger Tomorrow during
Mhm.
the COVID pandemic, and we focused on what were real deliverable actions that we could do in the middle of the pandemic for rural working class Iowans and others in the Midwest. And so did a lot of watchdogging of COVID recovery funds and the bipartisan infrastructure law funds across the state, and pushing it back against bad spending, misappropriations, and honestly, washing of the government's money that was meant to go to frontline workers and to keep our small storefronts open, but rather went to political favors and capital projects that were slated but never had the budget to do them. So that's a little bit of my organizing background.
I think that's how you got on my radar initially because I remember some of your work. It was related to, I think, the Woodbury County using the COVID funds for the jail And then
Yes.
wasn't there was something in Pottawatomie County, I believe, as well. Is that right?
Yes, there was a
Yep.
number of counties. There was Montgomery County. If I believe I'm correct. It was Montgomery County first that I identified that was going to use their COVID funds to buy new vehicles for department heads.
Mhm.
But rather, we pushed back and got them to establish a public input forum where they could hear from the public on where those funds should be spent. In Woodbury County, they tried to use $16 million in COVID recovery funds, not just to pay for the cost of that prison project, the law enforcement center, but to cushion the inflated cost of the prison project. Voters voted on a $50 million referendum. The prices skyrocketed to over $70 million today. They did an out-of-state non-union contractor. Some wind blew over the walls that they had because they didn't put in proper footings. And actually, just recently, the project is still not done. It didn't pass inspection because of the boiler system. So, even 4 or 5 years ago when we were fighting that, we're seeing that the people of Iowa were right, not the decision makers. So that's what a lot of my work's been about is empowering people.
And you said you grew up in Fayette County. Is that,
Yes, born
and
and raised.
where are you living? Are you living in the second district now?
I am living in the second district. I've always lived in the second district. While I've traveled a lot for work,
Hmm.
I've always lived here. At 19 years old, I was born in West Union, Iowa.
Hmm.
And at 19 years old, when I started to kind of settle down after, my wild young teenage years of running around playing music and chasing agitation against the ruling elite, I bought my farm. So at 19 years old, I became one of the youngest, maybe the youngest, first generation farmland owners in Iowa and in the United States. Today, 65% of farmland is owned by people 65 and older, 35% is owned by people 75 and older, and less than 2% is owned by people younger than 35. We're going to see a huge shift. And that's another problem, Laura, is we're going to see a huge shift in the transition of farmland ownership to a younger generation that simply isn't going to come back to run and operate that farm, and it'll end up in the hands and controls of these multinational corporations and conglomerates, or they'll have to sell off those farms. And we all know who's the only ones that have the money to buy up that land as well.
What do you grow on your farm?
Squash. I'm a squash farmer. The
That's
last
right.
couple of years, as I've focused primarily on community organizing, I did put that on hold. But now that I'm running for office here and more established explicitly in Northeast Iowa, the farm will be up and running again next year.
And do you sell to restaurants, farmers markets, grocery stores?
I do, yeah, I do. I participate in a lot of the local farmers markets. I also like to donate a lot of it as well. I've actually, any money that I've ever made, I've donated to small nonprofit organizations. So one of the most recent ones I donated to was HOCA. They're a nonprofit up in Northeast Iowa that helps people with detrimental health expenditures. If you happen to drive to Rochester for a dialysis or for a procedure. It helps pay for room and lodging and travel expenses to get up there. So, yeah, I do. It's small market kind of local stuff.
So when you're talking about a lot of your life's work has been focused on empowering people, particularly working people, can you talk a little bit about why you decided to run as an independent rather than seeking the Democratic nomination in this district?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, I uh, uh, I don't have a lot of faith in the Democratic Party. I never have. I did attempt to work within that system with the Bernie Sanders campaign. I saw in real time that being rigged in the 2016 elections, and it was rigged. That's where I stand my ground. I was actually part of the lawsuit against the DNC as well, and I saw the agreements that came out that were made before the first ballot was cast between the Secretary Clinton's campaign. So I gave it a fair shot in there, and then when Bernie ran again in 2020, I thought I'd give it a shot again, and we saw once more what the power of the party and the purse of the party can do. And I took a step back and I looked at what the Democratic Party and their platform has really delivered to people and the Republican Party, and I didn't see a lot there. I saw them waving Roe v. Wade in our face and codifying that every election, all the way back to 2008 when Obama said that he would do it. Well, then it just didn't become a priority. when he was in office. We talked about, there's the decriminalization of marijuana, or there's raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The Democrat Party was like, oh, we're so sorry, it's the parliamentarian. You know, there's the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. I can't see myself supporting a party that calls for environmentalism, environmental consciousness. And then, that administration goes and helps facilitate the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as reported on by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Seymour Hersh, causing the largest release of methane gas in that eco-terrorist act in world history. So I can't stand for that kind of hypocrisy. So that's why I didn't seek the Democratic nomination. And there's a number of reasons why I didn't seek the Republican nomination. I do agree with them on a number of things, including local control and including Second Amendment rights. But their fixation on some of these culture issues just really turns me off. And I can't stand for that kind of hate that I see among not regular people, not regular Republicans I know, but parroted by those in the media that know that it stirs up a very small but loud contingent on both sides of the aisle.
I think the Republicans, at least in Iowa, they left local control behind a long time ago, at least in their legislative agenda. It's been a while since they actually stood up for local control. I've done a fair amount of reporting on third party or independent candidates for federal offices, and I don't know that I've ever seen a candidate get more than 2 or 3% of the vote. So what do you feel like is your goal? Are you running more like to raise awareness about a certain set of issues, or how do you think you could break through and do better than other independent or third party candidates we've seen running for Congress in Iowa in the past?
Sure, absolutely. So in our district, if I'm not mistaken, in Central District 2, there are more registered independents than any district in Iowa, and that trend is maintaining when it comes to voter registration. What I would say is that I'm probably maybe one of the most serious independents that you will see run a race. I am running to win. I'm not running to raise awareness. I'm running to win on uh, a pretty basic and reasonable platform. It's about some of these American guarantees that we deserve, like healthcare. If we can send bombs to a country to commit a genocide like Israel, a country that guarantees healthcare to all of their citizens as a human right, we can do that here in America. We have money for healthcare here. It just flat and simple. And I think that we just need someone that is bold enough and not beholden to special interests to say that. I think that everybody knows that. I'm going to run this campaign and I'm going to say a lot of these things that I think that people intrinsically know in their hearts. But really, there's been no candidate to offer a vote to that will champion those things. I'm going to give people an option to not vote out of desperation, like they often do with these two parties, but vote on self-determination. Because when you're drowning, like a lot of us are, you're going to reach for everything. One second it might be the Democrats, the next second it might be the Republicans. The reality is that each one of those aren't going to buoy you to deliver you to where you're trying to get to. And I want to be that buoy. And I'm going to run this campaign like an organizer, which means really getting out there and talking to the people that are forgotten, the people that are neglected, the people that don't look like the people that occupy that government today.
If you were in Congress, we just have seen this showdown over the federal government funding that looks like it's coming to an end probably tomorrow in the House. What would you demand if you were in the position to vote on a bill to fund the federal government? I mean, what would be your line in the sand that you would need to see in that bill for you to be able to vote for it?
This is the easiest thing. This is the easiest solution for me. But I do want to start off with to both parties. I want to say you should be ashamed of yourselves. You should absolutely be ashamed of yourselves for dangling the working class and their health care and their supplemental food assistance, dangling that over a volcano just to score ideological points. We all know that there's portions of the Affordable Care Act that are broken. There's also good things in there, like protections against, not qualifying for health insurance because of pre-existing conditions. It's been 15 years since Obamacare was passed. It's time for an evaluation of it. It's time for an evaluation of it. So what I would do in there is not what we just did. which was waste 40 days shutting down this government, keeping people terrified on if they'll have their food or health insurance, in one of the sickest nations on the earth, mind you. And ultimately, nothing happened. They agreed to there were some defector Democrats that agreed to the same deal that was on the table for day one. What I would have done if I was in leadership in Congress, I would have had both of the leaders of those parties sign an agreement that said, we will open the government on the condition that we immediately enter into a caucus. And in that caucus, we will evaluate the current system of health and condition of health insurance in this country. We will look at the successes and failures of the Affordable Care Act, and we will not come out of that caucus until we have a real once and for all solution for Americans that takes care of everybody, including the poorest of the poor. I come from a family and from a community, the people that I talk to, the people that I hang out with, my friends and family, three, four, $500 a month for healthcare is something that they cannot afford.
Mhm.
Many people just don't buy into that. The Affordable Care Act was not designed for the poorest of the working poor. It was not designed for the people that are living paycheck to paycheck. And we need a system that is designed for that, and that's universal health care.
Universal, like Medicare for all, or Medicare for everyone who wants to opt into it, or what does that look like for you?
No, no, no. I'm not doing the Pete Buttigieg thing of for whoever wants it. No, it's for all. It's Medicare for all, flat across the board, like every other developed nation on this earth. Right now, United States ranks 14th in the world among developed nations for healthcare. We rank dead last when it comes to healthcare outcomes. We have some of the lowest life expectancy compared to most other developed nations. But you know where we rank number one? Healthcare cost,
Mhm.
right? And we do rank up there in access. So hey, it's going to be expensive, and you're going to be able to get in there, but the care is going to be terrible, and you're going to go broke over it, and you might not live that long. So it sounds like a very broken system to me, and it makes me wonder why aren't we fixing this? Why aren't we tackling this? And I think we all know the answer. It's the corporate influence in politics that is keeping this tied up.
Mhm. I
Like,
want to talk a little bit about Northeast Iowa. You mentioned the high number of registered independents in that part of the state. Some of the counties in Northeast Iowa saw the biggest swings in the country, among the top 20, 30, 50 counties in the whole country, from voting for Barack Obama to Donald Trump. And that included the independents. We can see that just going by the numbers of registered voters, we can see that a lot of registered independents in Northeast Iowa have started voting more for Republican candidates, and that includes even down ballot offices like state legislature. Why do you think that has happened? What's your theory on it?
sure. I would say that because fundamentally, Obama ran on a campaign of change. Nothing really changed. We didn't get a public option in his healthcare plan. What we got is a McKinsey Group, Mitt Romney healthcare plan. And I don't think the American people are dumb. I think they recognize that no matter what these political heads say on TV or how much they throw accolades towards Joe Biden or Barack Obama, they got betrayed. They got betrayed by Obama after putting their faith in him. And when you have that level of betrayal, and then you have someone like the 2016 election that happened, you had real populist energy on both sides, the Republican and the Democrat side. Unfortunately, the Democratic side chose to effectively stifle that populist voice and that populist sentiment, whereas the Republicans decided to embrace it. And we can see that that's where it got us today. Again, we made the mistake in 2020 where we just went for the redux of Obama. Well, we got a stronger redux, in response to that even more. And that's why we're seeing an administration here that is much different than 2016, but more efficient and effective. That doesn't mean good. I'm not saying good, but efficient and effective. And that's something that I said would happen under this administration.
You mentioned that you're going to be traveling out around the district. Where do you plan to be connecting with people and meeting people? Are you going to go to Democratic or Republican events, or mainly organize your own events, or what's the plan there?
I will go to Democratic and Republican events if they'll have me. I remember in the 2020 election, I went and spoke to groups of Republicans as well. You know, I had a number of Republicans that joined the Democratic Party temporarily, like myself, as I did, to caucus and be precinct captains for Bernie Sanders. I heard a lot of folks, my good friends, that would say, "I just want Bernie. You know, if not Bernie, I'll just go Trump." And there's a certain part of me like I can't blame them. You know that what that is that's a disillusionment with the two-party system, and they're looking at the two candidates that are most unlike the representation of that two-party system. So I'll go everywhere and anywhere. I'm young. I got the energy to run around and do it. I plan on hosting house parties. I plan on hosting dozens and dozens and dozens of town halls where I can hear from people and meet with people. I'll go anywhere where anybody will have me.
Is there anything I didn't ask that you think would be important for my readers to know, either about you or your campaign?
Sure. Yeah, one thing that I would say is if we keep sending the same people to Washington, the same careerist politicians that caused this problem, um, we're going to keep having the problem. We can't send the people that broke it. You know, we have to send people that are closest to the issues that we're facing if we want to fix it. And that's folks like me that went years without health care. That's folks like me that grew up in an apolitical family where we didn't talk about politics. You know, mom was working three jobs, you know, just to make things you know come together. One thing that I would say is that we have two parties that are so beholden to special interests they're afraid to name enemies. What sets me aside from these parties is right now we're talking a lot about, for example, housing, a big issue here in Iowa, housing availability. We talk about, you know, this Ezra Klein abundance model. It's all about zoning and it's all about, you know, lifting the red tape. No, there are enemies that we have to name. There is the Carlyle Group and there is the Blackstone Group and these private equity firms that are buying up our single family housing inventory. They say by 2030, in the next 5 years, private equity firms will own 40% of all single home family inventory in the country. You know, they say the solution is you know 50-year mortgages. At that point, just rent and accept that Davos speech where they said you'll have nothing and you'll be happy about it. No, I also don't think that the solution is some of these ideas of bringing in multifamily, these ticky-tacky duplexes. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm not speaking for all Iowans, but I feel like I am. We want to be able to afford a damn house with a yard that our kids and our friends and our family can run around in and enjoy life in. And we want to be able to pay that off before our kids end up going to buy their own house. You know, so it's on this campaign, we will be naming enemies and we will not be afraid because we're not beholden to any of them. The only people that I'm beholden to is the people of Iowa.
Dave Bushaw, independent candidate for Congress in the second district. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, you were just mentioning a national ballot initiative.
Yeah, so the thing that we're going to make sure is fundamental in this campaign is bringing power directly to people. The problem with our government today, the three branches of government, is in a 21st century, only one of those branches, the executive branch, operates at the expediency demanded by a 21st century society. Congress is stalemated. The judicial system has always been slow for deliberate and intentional reasons. But the executive can move on a whim. Meanwhile, there's all of these very real issues that get thrown back and forth like a political football, whether it's abortion, whether it's millionaires in politics, term limits, universal health care, or the health care issue in general. What I'm proposing is that we do at a national level what 26 states in this country already do, including Nebraska and South Dakota, that were the first to do this. And that is enshrined in our Constitution, in those constitutions, national ballot or citizen ballot referendums. So in states like Mississippi or Nebraska or South Dakota, if you collect enough signatures from your neighbors on an issue, that issue will be put on a ballot for the citizens of that state to decide on. In this campaign, we'll be advocating for legislation that would create a direct citizens ballot initiative at the national level. If you can collect enough signatures in each state, then come national ballot election day, we will all be able to vote on these things and finally put an end once and for all to these carrots that they dangle over us, or dangle over the working class all the time. We will decide on abortion. We will decide on marijuana decriminalization, term limits, getting billionaires out of politics, universal health care, whatever it may be. And I just trust the American people that will make the right decision. If we look at the 2024 election results in states like Florida and others that had those initiatives on their ballots, whether it was abortion and marijuana, for example, they either won or they nearly won, even in very Democrat or very Republican concentrated states. So I trust the American people and I trust Iowans to make the right decision.